Hello everyone, this is Miss Judy from the Cops and Kids Reading Room. Today we've chosen a book called Richard Wright and the Library Card, which is the last of our books selected in celebration of Black History Month. Just a little bit of information about Richard Wright, who became a world-renowned African-American author who is so well known for his book Black Boy and also Native Son. So I'm hoping especially older readers at some point will read the book. For Richard Wright became very famous. He loved reading books, and his writing grew out of that love. So let's begin our story, Richard Wright and the Library Card. Richard loved the sound of words, and he loved the stories that his mother told about the farm where she grew up. There was a willow tree by a bend in the river, she explained. I dreamed all my girl dreams down there. Richard loved to hear his grandfather tell about the war and how he ran away from his master and fought the rebel army as a slave. I was only a boy, his grandfather said proudly, but I fought as well as any man. I fought in the rain and the mud, and I carried the flag at the head of the troops. Richard longed to read stories on his own, but his family was very poor. They moved often, looking for work in different towns and cities. His father cleaned office buildings, and his mother cooked in the kitchens of wealthy white people. Richard had little chance to go to school. His mother taught him when she could, reading the funny papers out loud and sounding each word very carefully. When Richard finally learned to read, he couldn't buy or even borrow the books that he wanted so badly. Books were expensive. The doors of the library were shut against him because he was Black. So Richard read whatever he could find, old newspapers, books without covers that he pulled from ash cans. And when Richard was 7, he caught a bus to Memphis. Do any of you know where Memphis is? It's a city in Tennessee. Well, he hoped to find work, earn enough money to move to Chicago, which is in the state of Illinois, in the Midwest. And in Chicago, where he would make a new life for himself in the North. So Richard walked the hot streets, looking for a job that would be his ticket to freedom. He saw so many young men like himself searching for the same job, the same way out, and he finally found a place in an optician's office where he polished eyeglasses, he swept the floors, and he ran errands for the white man. As long as he kept his head down, as long as he began every sentence with, "Sir," Richard was safe. So Richard learned the behavior that would keep him in safe keeping. At night, Richard returned to the boarding house where he had rented a room. And to save money, he literally ate beans from a can that he warmed by water from the tap. Listening to the noise of the street below his window, Richard felt a familiar hunger for words. There were thousands of books in the public library, but only white people could get a card, could take them out. But Richard had an idea. At work, he looked around the office, trying to find one man who might understand his hunger for books. Let's see if he finds that person. Looks like it. For the most part, they were like so many white men he'd known before. They would never understand a black boy who wanted a library card, a black boy who wanted to read books even they didn't read. Only one man seemed different from the others. His name was Jim Falk. He kept to himself, and the other men ignored him as they ignored Richard. Several times Richard had been sent to the library to check out books for him. One day, when the other men were out to lunch and Jim was eating alone at his desk, Richard approached him. "I need your help," Richard said. "Are you in some kind of trouble?" Jim asked with a suspicious look. "I want to read books. I want to use the library, but I can't get a card." Richard had said to him, hoping Jim would not laugh in his face. "What do you want to read?" Jim asked cautiously. "Novels and plays and history." Richard felt confused. His mind was racing so fast that he couldn't think of a single book. Jim said nothing, but reached into his desk and brought up a worn white card, and he handed it to Richard. "How will you use it?" Jim asked. "I'll write a note," Richard said, "like the ones you wrote when I got books for you." "All right," Jim said nervously, "but don't tell anyone else. I don't want to get into trouble." "Oh, no, sir," Richard promised. "I'll be careful." So off he goes with the note. After work, Richard walked through the crowded streets to the library. He felt as if he were on a train to Chicago, as if he were traveling north already. So let's see what happens with this note. Well, when Richard walked through the door, he felt the old fear again. Many heads were raised at the sight of a black boy in the library. Richard kept his eyes down, not looking up until he stood before the checkout desk. And the librarian put on her glasses to make sure she wasn't seeing things. Richard handed her the note he had written and stepped back. "Why can't Mr. Falk get his own books?" she asked sharply. "He's very busy," Richard replied, his legs trembling. "All right," the woman said, "but you tell Mr. Falk I'd rather see him in person next time." Richard roamed the stacks, unable to believe that there were so many books in the world. He touched the leather spines and fingered the pages he had dreamed about for such a long time. "Are you sure these books aren't for you?" the librarian asked in a loud voice when he went to check them out. And once again, heads turned, and Richard felt the eyes of white people on him. He thought he'd been caught, that he would never be able to read the books that he wanted so badly. But Richard told the lady what she wanted to hear, and what she believed was true about all black boys like him. "No, ma'am," he said. "These books aren't for me. Heck, I can't even read." Well, the librarian laughed out loud, stamped his books, and Richard heard other people laugh as he walked right out the door. Looks like his plan worked. Aha. That night, in his room, Richard read until the sun dimmed the electric light. He read the words of Dickens. Dickens is an English author. Tolstoy, a Russian author, and Stephen Crane. He read about people who'd suffered as he had, even though their skin was white. He longed for the same freedom that Richard has spent his life trying to find. With the light of the sun coming through the window, Richard put down the book. Oh, he felt sleepy, but the words he had read echoed in his ears, colored everything that he saw. He wondered if he would act differently, if others would see how the books had changed him. Richard knew he would never be the same again. That morning, he carried the books to work in a newspaper. Whenever he had a chance, whenever the office was empty, for a moment, he read. Mr. Falk walked over, pretending that he was asking Richard to go and pick up his laundry for him. "What'd you get?" he asked under his breath. Richard opened the newspaper and showed him. Jim seemed shocked at first, but then a smile came over his face. "Those are some powerful books, Richard," he said. "Those books will stay with you for the rest of your life. But for now," he said, looking around the office, "you should keep them to yourself." Richard tried to do just that, but as the time passed for the journey north came closer, he didn't care who saw him reading. The men in the office either laughed at him or told him he was crazy. "What's a colored boy like you doing with all them big words? Your head can't hold all them big words." Even now and then, Jim smiled at him from across the room. The library books had changed some of Richard's feelings about white people, and Richard still feared them, but he understood them much better. The day he left for Chicago, Richard stopped by Mr. Falk's desk. And Richard said, "Thank you. Thank you for the books. Thank you for everything." Jim didn't say a word, but he shook Richard's hand in front of everybody. Wonder what they're all thinking about this relationship. Well, on the train going north, flying across the open fields, Richard remembered the books he had read. The words came back to him, the stories more real than the train itself. Every page was a ticket to freedom, to the place where he would always, always be free. That's our story of Richard Wright and the library book. Hope this brings a wonderful close to our Black History celebration in the Cops and Kids Reading Room.